Hello, Matt Davis here with more homework quiz help. This one is from section 7.1. According to an October 2011 Rasmussen study, 71% of Americans say that volunteering serves their community more than entering politics. Suppose that a random sample of size 891 was taken at that time, and those polled were asked if they thought volunteering was better. What is the expected range for the proportion of people in our sample that think sampling is better? Compute the best answer from the options below. All right, so let's start off really identifying the question here. They want us to give the expected range. So that's terminology we know from before. Expected range for any variable is you take the mean of that variable and you add and subtract 2 standard deviations of that variable. So what is the variable we're working with here? Well, it's the proportion of people in the sample that think volunteering is better, with the real emphasis being that it's the proportion from our sample. So if it's the proportion from our sample, then our variable is p hat. So if our variable is p hat, then our expected range would end up being mu of p hat plus or minus 2 times the standard deviation of p hat. For any variable, if you want its expected range, you take the mean of that variable plus or minus 2 standard deviations of that variable. So in terms of the answers that they're giving us as options here, we can actually rule out 2 of them right away, because with the mu plus or minus 2 sigma approach, what we're getting is a lower and upper boundary that we think trap p hat. So we think that p hat will be somewhere in between mu of p hat plus 2 sigma of p hat on the right and mu of p hat minus 2 sigma of p hat on the left. So we think that p hat's going to be in between this lower boundary and this upper boundary. So our answer should be one that gives p hat in between 2 boundaries. So what does that mean? It means it's not this answer and it's not that answer. So we've already narrowed it down to 2 options, and then we just need to plug in numbers to figure out which option to go with. So in terms of plugging in those numbers, we can start out by changing the formula. Mu of p hat is p, and sigma of p hat is sigma over, sorry about that, for p hat. This sigma of p hat is pq over n. And then we would do that on the other side as well. So mu of p hat is p plus 2 times the standard deviation of p hat, which is the square root of p times q over n. So our task is to plug in for p, q, and n in this spot to get the left boundary and in that spot to get the right boundary. And I'm going to leave it to you to do that. I will help you out a little bit with getting started. They tell us 71% of Americans, let's highlight that. So 71% of Americans say that volunteering serves their community better than entering politics. So that 71% is the proportion of successes in the population. So from that, we know that p is equal to 0.71. Always make sure you're converting your value of p from percentage to decimal form before you do any work with that. For q, we do 1 minus p, so 1 minus 0.71 would be 0.29. And then the last thing that we need down there in the formulas is n, which is our sample size. It says they took a sample of size 891, so n is equal to 891. So there's our values of n, p, and q that we can plug into the formulas below to get the lower and upper boundaries, and that should answer the question for us. Good luck. I hope that helps you out as you head back to the quiz.